Hello, this is Debra Taubenslag with Magical Messages of Hope. And my guest today, oh, we're so lucky because it's Lisa Adams, and she is a godsend to all caregivers. She has quite a number of remarkable, wonderful stories, and she's going to teach us how she's helped so many, including herself. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I really appreciate you having me here today. So, I am a caregiver myself, and I didn't even recognize that I was a caregiver pretty much my whole life. I'm what's considered a serial caregiver. And my caregiving journey actually started when I had foster siblings as a child who came in and lived with us. And I would help my mom and dad try to, tie shoes, do things, keep the kids occupied, and that is actually start of the caregiving process and journey. And then as a teenager, I had my grandmother who came and lived with us, and she ended up having some dementia symptoms and that sort of thing and losing her memory. And she actually passed away shortly after I moved from the East Coast of Canada to the West Coast of Canada. And then I had a son when I was 24 and noticed when he was about 3 or 4 years old that he was really hyper and he did not like to listen and was into stuff. And then finally had a diagnosis with ADHD. And then he also has a learning disability. So he didn't learn how to read until he was in grade 5, actually. Um,
So, all of your early experiences prepared you to be a mom filled with compassion for your son.
Oh, absolutely. So, and he's wonderful. He is now almost 24 years old,
Mm.
and he actually utilizes his ADHD to his benefit and his learning disability. So, he's really great at working with his hands. And I never did tell him that he couldn't be successful at whatever it is that he wanted to do. I always said, you know what? If you put in the effort, you can make anything happen. And so he did. So he recognized trying to go to college wasn't his avenue, it wasn't his lane. He initially wanted to be a plumber.
Mhm.
And so he kind of just shifted and decided to go work in the gas field and works in the pipeline here up in Alberta, Canada now. And at 22, he bought his first house.
Wow.
Yes.
So he had a lot of self-confidence because of his belief system of who he is.
That's right. Yes. And, I had to advocate as, anybody who has a child with a disability knows that getting the help and the support that they need is not easy. Finding out what a diagnosis is not easy when you go and you talk to your physicians all the time and they just go, yeah, no, that could be this or that could be that. It's like, no, I
Right.
need a diagnosis. I need to know what's happening so I can put things together. And it wasn't until he was in grade 5 that we learned what his specific learning disability was. Although he couldn't read, they just kind of kept passing him on socially because that's what they do.
Right.
And so once we found out what his learning disabilities were and got him into tutoring and helped with assistance and talking to the schools and to other people to say, look, if there's an issue, you need to let me know. I will, if I have to, I'll go sit in class with him. Like, we will make this happen. He is going to be successful at anything he chooses to do, period.
So you were a powerhouse of a mom.
I
Huh,
was.
that's right. And you know what? You were an advocate. Absolutely. That's so important. But you specialize, you actually have a business in helping other caretakers. Tell us about that.
Sure. So I'm actually what's called a caregiver coach. So I help support those non-paid caregivers, such as a mom, a dad, a friend, an auntie, a grandparent, who are help supporting somebody with an illness, disability, aging, or other. So that could be, I'm a military wife as well. So my husband is military, has PTSD. So I can help those families by putting tools in their toolbox so that they understand that what they're going through is also a traumatic experience. We don't ask for our child or our partner to have an illness or disability.
Right.
And we need to understand that sometimes it affects us in a traumatic way. And we need to focus on our own mental wellness, be validated on how we're feeling, and put tools in our toolbox. So when things happen or we don't know how to navigate or advocate or feel overwhelmed and stressed, how to actually work with that. So one of the examples might be how we reduce stress.
Right. I was just about to ask you, what are some of those tools in your toolbox that you offer? That you
Right.
suggestions with?
Right. And so what we know about stress, there's a lot of times that there's anxiety or a automatic thought process that comes up with it, and there's fear. So
Mm,
there's a lot of different things right there that we could work through. So one of the things might be is understanding how to detach from that worry and what that looks like, and how we can actually pull some tools out of our toolbox to go, okay, you know what, this is a really big worry, but is it really something that I need to be focused on? And how can I move forward through that? So one of those examples might be if I asked you and we started talking about a polar bear, for an example, and I wanted you to vision this polar bear, the fur, the face, the paws, what
okay.
it looks like, you kind of get this picture in your brain of that polar bear.
Yes, I
Now,
do.
all of a sudden, if I tell you to stop and don't think about the polar bear,
I can't stop.
you can't stop.
That's right.
And that's that worry.
Mm,
Right? And how many times is that automated thought process showing up? Now, if we can learn how to detach from it, because if somebody ever told you, oh, stop worrying about that, that's not a big deal, you're
but if
not going
it's
to
a big
stop.
deal to you, it is a big deal. That's right.
That's right. So, but if we actually learn to look at whatever that worry is and go, okay, in the priority list of worry, where would this sit? Oh, it's not really that important. It is important to acknowledge, but not really important to be a focus right now. I'm going to learn how to move that along, kind of
Mhm.
thing, for now. So that is at least saying, yeah, I have a worry, but you know what? It's okay. I'm going to not worry about that right this second. It's kind of that detached awareness of it. But then there's going to be worries that we need to focus on. So that might be, I have, a child that needs appointments made because they need to go see the doctor or specialist or whatever. Well, that is going to be a priority. So where can I fit that into my schedule to make that a priority? And let's focus on that for this amount of time right now.
So
And what
then,
happens?
in other words, so you help people to really prioritize, something that really matters as opposed to a fleeting feeling, or maybe it's an underlying, intense feeling. But in order to cope and to work and to move forward, with whatever you have to do, you're able to really help them, I guess, put a name on it in a way, right?
Right. Absolutely. Or recognize that there is other emotions that go along with it, like anxiety. So
Right.
when you feel that anxiety, what can you do to bring you back into the present moment when something of high stress shows up? So then I get to work through some techniques and teach them how to do that on their own.
Well, I'm going to ask you one now, because
Sure.
there's a lot of parents out there, and maybe even people, with their parents are in a nursing home and they can't really visit them, depending on what state and the states you're living in, and perhaps it's happening in Canada as well. So, or even the moms who are forced to homeschool and they're single parents and they have to work as well.
Absolutely.
So, here you have real challenges. So how do you help? Let's take the ones with the moms who are homeschooling right now
Sure.
and working at the same time, juggling. So that's intense, real anxiety. How would you help someone like that?
So one of the key things is finding ways that are going to work for you, who the caregiver is, to bring you back into the present moment. So one of those things might be,
Mm,
which one of the ones that I love is actually talking about when we were in kindergarten or grade 1, we would actually take a black piece of construction paper with maybe a white chalk and we would trace our foot.
that's right.
Right? So we
Hmm.
can actually do that exact same thing, but in our brain. So if we start at the ball of our foot and we just think, okay, we're starting at the ball of our foot, we're going to go up around our big toe, down around our second toe, our third toe, our fourth toe, our pinky, down around the back part of our foot, around the heel into the inside, up to the arch, and back to the ball of the foot. Now, if you're still having anxiety, we can do it with the other foot and do the exact same thing. And that is going to help bring us in because it actually gets us
That's
focusing on
right.
something else, right?
So you're centering.
That's right. And
You're
another thing
centering.
that works really well is what's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what's 5 things that you can see? What's 4 things that you can physically touch? So right now I can touch my chair. I can
Mhm.
touch my hair, for an example, my glasses. Then what's 3 things that you can hear? And as we go down, some of these things make it much harder to really focus on. Then it's what's 2 things we can smell? And what's 1 thing we can taste? And with that one, I always suggest for people to have like a hard candy or something in your pocket so that you can actually pull out should you need to go through that process. And what happens is it brings us back into the senses, which brings us back into
The
the
moment.
moment.
That's
That's
right. I love these ideas. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, how I wish I had that particular idea to be able to utilize it with my son when he was going through anxiety.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the really easy things that we can
For
use with
both.
our
Yeah.
kids, our care, whatever our care recipient is, or for ourselves, which is what I love is to bring tools that you can actually utilize on a daily basis. And one of the key things that I think is always important to recognize too is where your burden of stress is. Because
Mm,
a lot of times we don't know. We may think that we handle our stress pretty good. And then what we actually discover is you're at a severe burden of stress, which means there are significant things that may happen to you, such as chronic illness, your own medical breakdowns, your own mental health and well-being. And so I actually have a 30-minute discovery call to really focus on that piece. And it's free. And it's just for people to go, okay, where is my burden of stress? Because if we can actually identify that initial piece, we can go, okay, so where is that stress coming from? And where should we build out a plan to help support you, the caregiver?
suppose I know with caregiving, I remember when I was caregiving both my parents, including my son, it was so overwhelming. And I probably could give you like a list at all my fingers. And so you help people prioritize which is their biggest pain point. Would you say that is
Well,
probably
it really depends on the person. So
okay?
what one person feels is really
Give
difficult
us
in
a
their life,
story. Give us a
which
story.
might, okay, so prime example, I have a family that I work with. Their son has autism,
Hmm.
also ODD, so lots of behavioral issues and stuff like
Right.
that too. They have gone through the school systems. They've tried to get medical help, support through the Autism Society, certain diagnoses to go along with it, and supports. Well, their son ended up in hospital for mental health stuff, and they just wanted to release him back home without having any supports in place. So you have to understand because of the behavioral issues, the child actually tried to physically hurt the father.
Mm,
And so the
that's
father has PTSD over the incident, and the child has PTSD because of different things that have happened to get him into the medical system to get the support. But if you just send them home and they have no tools at all, what's going to happen?
it'll repeat.
It's gonna repeat, yes.
That's right.
So the goal is if we can give the caregiver some
Hmm.
support and resources and advocate. So I was able to really focus on teaching some grounding techniques. So when that anxiety comes up, you can reduce the stress. But I was also able to work with the family to advocate with other medical professionals, with some different organizations such as the Autism Society, who was supporting them too, to come together to really find out what did this particular child need to have the supports in place to ensure that when he goes home, he's going to be successful and the family's going to be successful.
Wow, that's wonderful because when I'm really hearing from you, yes, you are a teacher helping caregivers, to learn skill sets that they can become back into balance, but you also teach them how to advocate, to speak up. Hey, this is what our family needs.
That's right.
It's wonderful. And obviously, you've learned these skills because you've come from a background, not only from your childhood, but you said that, you have a child that, has learning disabilities and a military husband that
That's right.
had, some emotional issues being in the military.
And I actually worked as a educational assistant when my younger son, who also has ADHD, started going through Head Start, which is kind of like a preschool for
Yeah.
kids that have special needs and that sort of thing to get them prepared for when they went into kindergarten. So I would volunteer so much that they said, why don't you actually come and go on the substitute list? And then I got hired and worked in the industry for 5 years. So not only do I have that, I also volunteer as a peer support coordinator for military families who are not not knowing where to go or where to be heard or learn tools for their military spouse who has an occupational stress injury or post-traumatic stress. And it's
That's
because of
huge.
all of these
Absolutely.
experiences, I went and got an education in professional PTSD counseling, advanced training in complex PTSD, cognitive behavioral techniques. I'm a holistic healer, so that I have a wide variety of tools. I'm a life coach that I can bring in to help each one of these families, because each family is unique. But what's really interesting is it doesn't matter what your caregiving journey is, there's always commonalities in it. And that's why I also facilitate a free peer support group
Yeah.
once a week.
Well, it sounds to me like this is truly a labor of love for you.
It really is.
And and whether you're working with military families or even, someone who's caring for their elderly parent or parents that's going through some type of dementia or illness, or maybe a spouse that's having illness, special needs, parents, I think the common denominator is that overwhelming stress and possibly post-traumatic stress disorder, because I mean, we don't realize, when we're young and and in our early 20s, like, that life can bring us these challenges. And I guess it's how we look at those challenges, that either, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So yeah, like that song.
Absolutely.
So
And
my question to you is, because we do have to wrap up, what is the magical message of hope that you'd like to leave with your listeners today?
so, what I really hope that everybody can hear is, as a caregiver, you do not have to go through this journey alone. Many
Mhm.
times we feel hopeless and that nobody understands us and we're isolated with being a caregiver, but that is not true. I am here to support you. That's why I have, my peer group on Facebook, my peer groups that I facilitate once a week, to ensure that you do not have to feel alone and that you can be validated, because what you're feeling is that.
Mm.
Whatever emotion you're feeling is what you are feeling. There is no wrong or right way to do it, but having the ability to learn new skills to be able to utilize when things are difficult can be hugely beneficial to you. And that's what I get to do and get to help you, because I want you to go from being uh, barely surviving to striving as a caregiver.
Oh, God bless you. This is wonderful. Now, if somebody wants to pick your brains, or they want to just to be able to reach out and learn more about the peer support group, or possibly hire you as a coach, tell us how they can reach you.
Sure. They can reach me on my website at
Mhm.
heart.support, and they can also reach out to me via email at lisa at heart.support. And you
Heart
can find
dot court.
heart.support. Yes. And you can also find me on Facebook, and it's really easy. It's Lisa, facebook.com/front slash Lisa Adams Coaching. And you can go right from that Facebook page to my group. There's access right there on that. Or you can email me, like I said, at lisa@heart.support, and all my information is right in my signature.
Terrific. And I'll put it all in the show notes as well. Lisa, thank you so much. You're such a gem, and we're so lucky that you're there to help us. Have
Thank
a
you so much.
wonderful day.
Have a
Bye-bye
wonderful
now.
day full of gratitude. Thank you.
Thanks.